And now onto our final session for today. And it is my great pleasure for this next fireside chat to welcome Marek Rucinski, Deputy Commissioner and Head of the Smarter Data Program for the Australian Taxation Office, to join us on stage. Marek will be accompanied by Samuel Spencer, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Technical Founder of Aristotle Cloud Services. Sam, I think you're going to be introducing Marek, and it's lovely to see you, Marek.
Good to see you,
over to you.
Thank you very much. I've got notes.
Indeed.
I do.
I got data.
Oh, this is going to be fun. So this was the last kind of minute thing. So I'll keep this quite brief because I think we do want to get to the actual topic at hand. So as said, Marek is a Deputy Commissioner over at the ATO, responsible for how many thousands of programs?
Well, 1,000 people, 130, 140 concurrent build programs.
And a lot of AI and a lot of machine learning capability around it as well, helping with the ATO Data and Analytics Professional Stream, and is a part of the APS Data Professional Stream and chairs the APS Data Champions Executive.
Indeed.
Fantastic. And I'm Sam Spencer, and I am a former public servant and now run a private sector organisation and a self-professed AI skeptic, which is why I think this is
going to be fun.
This is going to be very interesting. So, I guess jumping in, I find AI a really interesting topic because there's a whole breadth of kind of topics that it can cover. I think everybody's very aware of things like ChatGPT and large language models, which I think are very, very topical at the moment. But it can also broach into things like traditional machine learning systems, traditional statistical programs that can provide AI capability. So, I guess with the breadth that we've seen today and with the breadth that's kind of out in the market, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for the public sector at large to take advantage of artificial intelligence? It's
a nice loaded question for 5 p.m., yeah? So look, good afternoon, everyone, and really happy to be here. So I'm the closer, and I'm holding you away from the drinks. So I'll try to be brief, but hopefully a bit stimulating for the last session of the day. So look, I think where my brain is on this is that we have a new baseline that has sort of moved quite radically in the last 12 months. AI has moved from sort of news headlines and snippets and backrooms to something that is really changing the back offices of most of the businesses and agencies. And I think in the next 12 to 24 months, is going to move to transforming how we experience the businesses and how we use agents to help us experience things as well. So I think there is a number of things at work here. So I think I've got a couple of thoughts in regards to what it means for government and public sector at large. Yeah. So the first one that I'd like to sort of put forward to you guys is that the community expectations are in flux and they will move quickly. And we as public servants will need to keep pace with those changing expectations. So what do I mean by that? If you put yourself in your shoes as a normal person, yeah, outside of this forum, outside of the public sector, you benchmark the quality of the delivery of government services to the public sector, how you experience public sector user experience and potential design of the actual workflows and so forth, right? And if the government services are not on the same par, if they're not fueled by intelligence to drive personalization and specificity of their activities, you will not be satisfied. Yeah? And I think the community will be reaching that point very quickly if we don't keep pace. Yeah? I think the other side of it is that community also expects us as public servants and government to provide and build guardrails and guidance on AI as well. That is really evolving as a very, very hot topic right now. Now, this is in train. There is lots of movement in APS right now on developing that guidance and regulation. But the challenge is that the tech is moving very, very fast. Yeah? So the law and regulation precision in regards to this design is going to continue to be a challenge. We want to protect, we want to guide, we don't want to constrain and build a regulatory straitjacket. Yeah? And that's a very, very fine line there, facing up to that. So then the second reflection is, well, in that context, in context of changing community expectations, the tech is moving very, very quickly, and in fact, it's accelerating, yeah? So if you're not deploying AI in traditional sense, i.e. your usual DL, ML stuff, right, that's been around for a few years, yeah? I'm not even talking about the more funky, shiny LLM stuff that everybody's talking about, then you are already behind because you're not ready to play with LLMs at scale, right? Because you haven't done enough groundwork to be precise, confident, and therefore successful. So those organizations that are not there right now are already in catch-up mode. And if you combine it with the fact that tech is moving even quickly, then things get tricky. Now in government, we're okay because we're in a monopoly situation, yeah? So it may be sustainable for a bit, yeah? Not for long. But if you're in the private sector, then you're facing some major structural disruptions. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement in regards to survival or lack of it, of businesses that are not keeping up, yeah? And as they say, you go bankrupt very slowly and then very quickly, yeah? We might see that pattern as well, yeah? So the innovation cycle is contracting. GPT-5 will be close to AGI, right? If you read the papers, if you read what Altman is saying, it's going to be very, very close, yeah?
Does everybody know what AGI is? Have we all heard that acronym?
Artificial general intelligence, yeah? So you can basically, personal equivalent, yeah? And you can do it for anything you want as opposed to very precise tasks that are defined by the user, yeah? And I think the event horizon for singularity is also shrinking, right? So if you listen to Kurzweil 10 years ago, he was saying 2040, 2050. Then he was saying 2029. Now it's probably closer, right? Who knows?
Okay, so we're gonna deviate a bit then, because we're talking about like really big topics here. Like, so singular. They're big topics.
Of course.
They're really like, and they do have the.
Have to make things interesting at 5 p.m.
Oh, good Lord. They do have the potential to have a profound impact on society. So, like, do you think that when it comes to that community conversation, is there an expectation we're using AI, or is there an expectation we should be cautious? We're talking about regulations versus innovation. Like, how do we straddle that razor's edge? What do we tell people, and what do we do?
I think the message for me, at least my platform here, is the fact that you cannot be an observer anymore. You have to participate. Because if you don't participate, you're going to fall behind, yeah? And I think if you take that stance, then government agencies and businesses need to start reimagining their services, workflows, and so forth, because they're going to be highly, highly disruptive by what's being sort of cooked on the sidelines right now, yeah? If you look at call centers, processing flows, complex reasoning tasks, law interpretation, at ATO, we're looking at all of those, right, in regards to what will happen to those workflows in 3 to 5 years' time. How will they be different, yeah? Now, at ATO, we banked a lot of gains from AI already, right, and I spoke to that publicly, and if you don't know, just Google my name and stuff will come up. But we are moving to higher order reimagination, right? So think about, really redefining process as a whole as opposed to individual node that makes a decision with a model, yeah? So it's a different order of consideration, yeah? And I think in that context, if you take a step back, data is still the key, yeah? People talk about it as oil, uranium, lithium, it's valuable, it's got a half-time and so forth. But I think data and your ability to, aggregate, curate the right type of data is going to be your secret sauce, right? Because if I've just finished, because I think the key thing is that data is the only thing that's going to be differentiated, yeah? Like all the algorithmic logic is going to be commoditized and also democratized, yeah? So what's going to be different about how you do the differences? It's going to be your data and how you apply it. Yes, sir.
Wow, I'm really having a good time with it. Okay, so again, like I think that brings us back to kind of what we were talking about before, like when we were out in the hall, and that really comes back to. And by the way, if people want to ask questions through this, pop hands up and stuff, and we'll take a few. So with that democratization, with that aspect of data, I think one thing that's on everybody's mind here is around data security, and a big thing that kind of follows on from that is data sovereignty. So the idea that Australian data on Australian citizens remains in Australian data centres. However, we've got this kind of, there's 4 or 5 leaders. Like you've already talked about Sam Altman and OpenAI and ChatGPT.
Yep.
That's where people think when they think AI. They think, ChatGPT, that will be the answer. With those being run, externally, with those being run by, allies, but still on American soil, in American jurisdictions, how do we safely share our data? What can we do to bridge the data sovereignty problem? How do we take the data that we know and is well protected and feed it into, these intelligent AI systems?
It's a real issue, especially if we take into consideration my color around data and the privacy and the sensitivity of data that a lot of the agencies hold on, right? So I think in that context, we do want to retain that and protect it and cherish that. And I think, the reality is that the main AI originators in the context of the infrastructure and the base core models are outside of Australia. So what do we do? Yeah. And I think also the other thing that's, if you play it out, is that the AI businesses that will be leveraging these core models will also be much more fluid in the context of their locality as well. So which will create potential risks that we need to be addressed by governments around the world in regards to protection of the revenue base going forward, right? Because where's the AI doing the work? So I think in context and reflecting the question, we are doing a couple of things that may be relevant to the audience here. Number one, we're not allowing our data to be used for further training of the commercial agents, yeah? So we're very protective about our data, yeah? This is either done by using commercial LLM agents such as Copilot and ChatGPT to address and play only with the data that we publish publicly. And there is still value there to do that. And also publishing proactively to limit the divergence result from core engines, right? We don't want to create bad training sets as well, right? It also is done by flexing to open source models as well, right? So we are using open source LLMs as the core, and then we fine-tune them with our own data, yeah? And that way, everything is behind our firewalls, yeah? In local data centers, right? So again, it's all, in regards to, within Australia, yeah? I think, there is a call out in regards to support and build out of the local store and compute data centers, yeah? I think this is already in play to a degree, yeah? But I think the compute needs to be architected to ensure data is safe and not sucked into the training set in the cloud. I think we're all a bit worried about that, especially when it's, private data, right? There's a lot of sensitivity in that.
So with that topic of training, and again, I think this is a really interesting one. So training, for those of you who aren't aware, kind of relates to feeding data in and basically teaching, a newborn child how to think and what to say. As somebody who uses ChatGPT, it's great. It's a really useful, powerful tool. One thing that I've found is I get too many Zs. So has anybody found you get some text out of ChatGPT and it just drops Zs everywhere, synchronize and harmonize. I'm like, no, I want you to use Australian English. And I can't even say that. I found the most effective thing as a hint, please use British English, not Australian English. It understands that better. But how do we manage that data going in from a training perspective? And you said, we have this principle, we don't retrain the data. What do we do, again, from a perspective of these commercial algorithms, these commercial training models are trained on an American context. They don't understand our world. How do we teach them?
They do and they don't. I think the way to sort of look at it is to really separate the core model from the fine-tuned model, right? So think of the core model as the general practitioner, a GP, yeah? It comes back with with highly trained, right? I'm not being disrespectful. There's lots of obviously very, very intelligent and highly computed algorithmic logic there, but it's a GP, yeah? What, for example, our lawyers want is a very specialized, agent that has got a lot of experience in law, yeah? So you basically build that database on the side and infuse the general practitioner model with that and becomes a hybrid, yeah? Now, the advantage of doing that is you infusing it with localized data, localized knowledge, localized training insights, but also leaves you flexibility because if the general practitioner model gets updated in US, then we can just replace it, right? And the connections are still true, right? So we need to sort of reach that level of maturity and flexibility to leverage the overseas insights and R&D and obviously progress, but to fuse it with our local know-how, our local context to allow us to become relevant in what it's actually spits out, yeah, with less Zs. S's. I like S's too.
But again, it becomes important for making sure we have that local context. Because again, I've seen incorrect data come back, and I think again we're talking about lawyers and legislation, which again kind of segues in. So as you were saying towards the start, for a long time, AI and machine learning was it was a bit of a nerdy thing, right? Like it was like it was a plaything for a very long time where, you'd bring up some tools and you'd get some graphs and you'd have to go to the command line and you'd kind of hack away. And then, mid last year, early last year, ChatGPT kind of sprung onto the scenes and it was everywhere. And then all of a sudden anybody can do it and anybody could sign up. And, we've got, things like Mid-Journey where we can generate images straight away. And it's now started to become something that's impacting policy areas. It's impacting, legislation. It's impacting executives. Like it's starting to have, a broad scale approach where everybody now has use to or access to AI that assists people in what they're doing, around language processing, around language development, around assistance on coming up with questions for a fireside chat.
Came from my brain. Samuel's brains.
This was all human generated. This is 100% human generated content. And you have to start putting those caveats out now. So how do we approach that? How do we approach the caveat of how do we tell people what is human generated and how do we make sure everybody in the organization, how do we make sure we're bringing everybody on board for the journey? What can we do from a policy perspective to make sure all of our business units are able to leverage this, amazing, powerful Prometheus level technology?
That's a deep question for 5:30. But look, I think for me, the fact that there is a clear function of AI and data analytics going from back office to front office to being quite pervasive across the organizations, I think we'll probably establish that quite well during the day. I think in the context of democratizing it, the key call out here is that the AI tools and methods are being much more commoditized, but also will be democratized, will be much more accessible, right? Like as you mentioned, the interface that we're having with ChatGPT versus coding in Python is very, very different, right? And I think it's going to evolve even more because this is as complex as it's going to get. It's going to get easier and easier over time. Yeah, coding will no longer be required. Yeah, you saw the emergence of Davin. Who's seen Davin? No, there we go. One hand there. Google Davin as the AI-driven data engineer, right? It goes way beyond Copilot. You give Davin a prompt, and it builds an application for you, end to end.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in on this one.
There you go. The skeptic.
I am the skeptic, and I think the reason why I'm skeptical is because as someone who has a software development background and has a Python background, is a bit of a nerd. What we're seeing is a lot of demonstrations of the ability to generate.
Yes.
Right? And it's really easy to get a system to generate new content, but is that maintaining new content? So what we've got is an artificial intelligence software developer that's probably scaring all of my team back at the office, and they can build a new tool, but can we give existing legacy systems, and is there a gap where we're going to be focusing on the brand new and shiny and building something new without understanding the maintenance, and what does that do for knowledge and capability?
No, look, absolutely it's going to be a challenge, right? I think the key question here is that we as humans need to really figure out where we belong in the new value chain. I think it needs to be some deep thinking done, because I think we have to again think about which tasks are unique to us in this new context. Yeah, ethics, judgment, design parameters, maintenance, guidance, like those things are still very much human-centric. Will they remain so? That's a bit of an existential question. Yeah, there's a question in the back of the room. We'll take it soon. Yeah, but I think there is also a perspective where this partnership will yield significant benefits, right? I think we have opportunity for non-technical staff to be upskilled in the space as well and become involved in the design process and actually then ladder up the design much better, and be able to fuse the technical with the business value much, much better because it's going to be very, very intuitive, yeah? Potentially.
Sorry, there's a question at the back. You can yell it out and I'll repeat it. It's okay. So I think while we wait, like there's a need for us to understand what we're trying to, what we as people are going to be doing. And yes.
No, thank you. I want to raise the elephant in the room. It never gets talked about, and I think it's the culture of our understanding of privacy as an individual thing. There's a 2018 book called Group Privacy. It's got co-authors including Luciano Floridi and stuff from Oxford. It's a really important topic. The Privacy Act review won't cover collective privacy, group privacy. And, you know, AI, a large part of what's valuable about it is that it uses demographic information, not personal information, to derive value. So given that, you know, the laws can't change quick enough, but they should, it's understandable why they've gone a bit on the individual focus. And I know there's the data ethics framework that's coming out, and it's part of that whole implementation plan for the data and digital government strategy. But in terms of guardrails, in terms of what humans do uniquely, which is the ethics, what are we doing about group privacy to have a consistent approach across the whole APS?
Well, I cannot speak for APS, but I'll speak for ATO. So let's limit the discussion to that first. Yeah? And it's a very important question because I think ethics and the application of ethics is still very much that human-centric task. Yeah? And it's very much at the center of how we perceive those tasks. So we've got 6 ethical principles that everybody in ATO gets trained on every year. Yeah. So all of the 20,000 plus people are sort of mini data ethicists in that context. Yeah. And it gets considered when we build every model and then when we maintain every model. Yeah. And it is a combination of, you know, checking for biases, protecting the privacy and so forth, right? And it's becoming more and more important as the complexity of the models evolves, right? Because it is that very fine line to ensure that humans still retain control, yeah? That we are still the ones dictating the terms of how decisions are done, yeah? And to give you an example, you know, we, for example, do not use any deep learning models in frontline applications because of the black box, yeah? Because I cannot stand here and explain to a judge or in the court of law how the model made the decision because, as we know, deep learning models are a bit opaque, yeah? Well, so, but machine learning models, ML models, are a different kettle of fish, as we all know. They are explainable. We can describe the corpus of knowledge and the algorithm behind it. So there's another nuance there as well, yeah? So now, the other comment that I'll make in this context is that, you know, you do need precise knowledge to deploy this technology with confidence and precision, yeah? It is very easy to get in trouble. And I think that's something that is worthwhile sort of reflecting upon as well. Yeah?
I think coming to your point of decision making and coming back to the question as well, I think the challenge with data and the challenge with, you know, AI is you know, there is bias in data. Like the data we have tells us the stories that we measured. And I think that's a challenge when it comes to group privacy and understanding the potential sensitivities of identifying, you know, protected groups within data sets as well. And I think it comes back to your framing of the term decision. And I think, again, the best principle that I've read was actually laid for us back in the 1970s. And it was when, you know, IBM started to get into machines themselves, the production and the commercialization and the implementation of computers. And it is very simply stated as a computer can't be responsible, so a computer shouldn't take a management decision. It can output an idea and it can tell us something, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, what we would recognize is that we're responsible. Like it's a person who makes the decision. And I feel like I would say from an ethicist perspective, what we would need to do is we can't minimize and say, ChatGPT told me to do this. What we have to do is say, I got information and I, as a human being, made a decision based on that information.
We are still responsible.
Exactly.
Held to account.
Yeah.
And that will serve as sort of...
Until we can put computers in prison.
Well, yeah. But it also is important to consider because it is the right type of friction in the process, yeah? Because I think AI is very seductive in providing frictionless streamlining and scalability, yeah? But it's dangerous. I think it's the balance of having the right friction, having the right oversight to gain the benefits from this technology, but also to retain control.
Exactly. Now, I think we're at time.
There's another question there, I think.
There's one really quick question,
Okay.
and then I'll ask one question to you, and then I think
I'll keep it quick. It'll only take 10 minutes.
Sure. Please be informed you are keeping
It's a
everybody...
multi-layered question, so it's great.
We have to write it down.
Exactly. It's generating.
Can we just get ChatGPT to answer?
So,
Sorry, go.
Marek, I guess just very quickly, on the data side of things, so I agree with you, in fact, that the data is kind of the new frontier to actually enact and enable good AI. Bad AI can go terribly wrong, as we've seen, and I think Gemini is a great example of that. But can you just elaborate a little bit on how you see the ATO getting its hands around just the enormity of the data that you have?
Yep.
And also the other part to that is the security and access control because of the sensitivity and security of that data. How the ATO is trying to get around or get its hands around that so that the sensitive data is not going in to the system, if you will, coming out with a result that then can lead to a road of tears.
Yep. So I'll go backwards. So I'll answer the second part first. So the second part is we are very conscious of us being the honeypot. Yeah. We are under constant attack. Yeah. Our cybersecurity guys are very, very busy every day. Yeah. And as we know, it's an evolving sort of cold war out there. We are conscious in bringing data only that we need. Yeah. We're not into hoovering up data for the sake of having data. So we're very conscious of it because, actual storage is not free. Organizing data is not free. Managing data is not free. So there's an implicit cost here, right? And we are very conscious of actually not over-investing in data that we don't use, yeah? The second aspect is we are promoting more natural systems of data. So we want to have connectivity to source systems as opposed to holding data ourselves, yeah? And for us, again, it's sort of, limiting that factor of creating bad data events, yeah? So I think that's one thing. The first question is, how do we make sense out of it? Yes, it's a struggle. There's a lot of investment in cataloging and lineage software, right, and that we're going through right now to allow us to comprehend what we have. We also are investing in industrialized data quality measures. So we've got 6 dimensions of data quality that we code, but these are not qualitative measures. Each of those measures is quantitative in nature. So as data hits our shores, we can derive quantitative measures of quality, which are then linked and derived into data scores, which then are linked to type of quality that you can use for different types of decisions. So for example, if we use pre-filled data for your tax returns, obviously implicitly, that has got the highest quality data required, right? Because it's to be matched perfectly to you for this particular period in time, et cetera, right? So all 6 dimensions will be maxed out, yeah? But you don't always need that type of data, right? So that's where, having those data quality at a quantitative measure, industrialized across the data sets, for me is a real game changer in regards to really managing how you use the data once you identify what you have, yeah? We haven't done it yet, by the way, fully. It's work in progress.
I think...
I'm not going to kid you.
Well, speaking for myself, I could ask a million questions on data quality, but I won't because I think we're going to get wrapped up really soon. But there is one final question I'd like to ask you to take us into networking drinks. Now, there's a whole bunch of conversations that we need to have this evening, and that's what I want to see everybody here doing. So my question to you is, if you could tell everyone one question they should ask their peer when they go out for networking drinks, what is the question that we should all be discussing this evening? And that's not a social question. More like, seriously, what do you think we should be asking each other when we go out there?
I think I'll come back to the reimagination as a theme, right? How will your business look like in 3 years' time? Yeah, like ask yourself that. Have a reflection and challenge your peers. Yeah, are you doing enough? Have you thought deeply enough in regards to what's this so what from all the technology that's swirling around us right now? Yeah, because there's a lot of hype. Is it real? Will that affect you?
I know.
You need to respond.
I know we're going to be in a few minutes. We're going to be kicked off. But thank you very much. It was really nice to talk with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to you.